it changed my trajectory. And really, we will see how unqualified. Thank you. We will. Okay, thank you. Then we will see how unqualified or qualified my decision was. So it's important for me to give a bit of background here that in a point in my career, I'd gotten to a dead end, a place where literally you're looking forward and there is a wall. You're looking on your sides and you're seeing big rocks. You're looking above and there is a ceiling. And you're asking yourself, what do I do? And the one thing I told myself, definitely prayerfully, is there is space at the back. I could just retreat. I could move back. And moving back for me meant resigning. So the unqualified or the qualified position that I got myself in is telling myself, for me to move, what decision must I make here? An opportunity to go to Manchester came about through a scholarship that I felt very unqualified for. And as I look back, it's one of those decisions that I say it really turned the tide for me, because very many times we forget that it's okay to take a bet on yourself. So yes, that was just one of those instances that you feel unqualified to take up on a role. You see people who have taken such positions before, and you look at yourself and imagine, can I ever? Can I ever? And yes, you can, because you're God's child.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So yes, you can, because you're God's child. And I think maybe, what would you say was something that made you feel, something that stood out for you? Like, okay, all my peers are doing this, but what individually could I do differently in this situation?
Yes, thank you so much for that. I felt so unsettled. I felt I needed to have been at a certain point in my career, and I wasn't there. And yes, I know today, if you listen to the preacher, we talked about not comparing yourselves with people. That's what the preacher talked about. But then there is that small thing inside of you that always wonders, am I where I'm supposed to be? So that was the question at the back of my mind that kept me pushing myself for more. And my role at the time when I was making that decision felt mundane, I would say. I felt unchallenged. I felt I could do more, yet the role was not expanding me. And so that was the reason why I had to take that leap.
Thank you so much. Okay, Naaman, to you. Could you say something that when you were younger, you were doing consistently that made you rise early in your career?
Okay. That's a hard one. But I think what I've always consistently done is unpacking. You know, like if you have a challenge, you have a problem, I spend a lot of time trying to unpack what that problem is. It might be my primary training, because I was primarily trained as an architect. And it's about solving problems, and you know, we look into a space and we say, okay, fine, we need to house you because you'll be rained in or rained on. We need to get windows up so that you don't get too hot, and so on and so forth. So I've always had that mindset. And even when we faced the challenge that we faced in South Africa, where I was, this was in 2010. Just after the World Cup. It's sort of, you know, World Cups bankrupt countries. You see the fanfare, but you don't see the economic impact. And so we're faced with a real situation where we were saying, okay, what is going to happen beyond this? Because now work is not going to come. And so there are many ways to deal with that problem. I decided to pivot because I had initially got another training in the finance space. So I said, rather than wait for this situation to fix itself, we'll be proactive and we'll then look for solutions to this particular problem, which is what? It's a funding problem. And so we then applied our minds towards trying to fix that particular funding problem. So the long and short of your question is, I've always tried to focus on finding a solution rather than dwelling on the actual problem itself, because that's how you move forward. And it's also okay to fail forward, I must say. It's okay to fail forward. You might not always get it. You'll catch L's, which is fine. You keep pushing, and you learn from that.
Thank you. Brian, maybe some insights, something you are consistently doing when you were younger that made you rise early.
So my story resonates with the story of primarily 90% of everyone who is seated here. So some of those habits that, exposed me early is being in the church. So I was brought up in the church, in the African Inland Church. And then I came to Nairobi just after I finished Form 4. And I had to look for a place to start from. So I started from CITAM, NPC Ngong back then, under the graduates program, ex-cans program. That's where I started. And of course, this was back then in 2013. So growing up, of course, I was always the guy playing the keyboard. And of course, playing the keyboard in the village is different from how you play keyboard in Nairobi. Because in the village, we use something called transpose. So you just have to find the tune of the lead singer by the button, by transposing. But I came to Nairobi, I realized it's something called chords. So you have to know the voice C, play at C. So when I joined choir in CITAM and someone was telling me, play at C, I was like, just keep on singing, I'll find. So I realized that was not for me. But of course, exposing myself into high pressure scenarios, because that was a high pressure scenario. The pastors asked, who can play the piano for us because the piano guy is missing today? Then you raise your hands. Then, of course, you have to deal with the pressure of the church is having a high expectation. They want you to play. So that's how I started. So taking the risk early. And of course, being in a church, of course, you are able to start learning the behavioral of people. So I was very keen. Back then, we used to have Pastor Jesse. No, Pastor. He's now in the US. He's Pastor Bosco. Yes. So the English, the swag, the suit. So you can be able to mirror yourself in their lives. Of course, who is married, who has kids, who is driving. So church gives you a combination of all those people in one day where you can just come, observe people, and, start making wishes that one day I want to be like this, I want to be like that. So in a summary, that's what I've borrowed.
Thank you, Brian. Karen, perhaps some insights on something you did consistently when you were younger that made you rise up in your career.
Thank you. So I was just thinking about it. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I've been in the same work environment for the last 8 years. So I joined PwC straight from campus, and that's all I've known. So my context of growth is within one environment. But as I think about that question, I think I'm someone who's always had a very deep sense of responsibility. And I thank my parents for that, just the training I got. My dad is a military man, so we really had to adhere to discipline, like waking up, pushing yourself, whichever task you're given, you have to complete it. So just looking back, that has really helped me because a lot of tenacity and discipline is required, especially in the audit context. Yeah.
So would say discipline, thinking solutions. I think that's what Naman was telling us, and also expose yourself to these high pressure situations. And just to follow through on that conversation on staying in one place and moving, I think maybe we can invite Brighton to give us maybe some insight, because that's usually a dilemma young people have, whether to, grow through the ranks or rather kind of, the jungle gym, you keep moving left, right. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting debate almost everywhere. But over time, I've seen it's also depended on the field. But before I respond to that, let me add something else that has worked for me. I'm super curious, which is both a good and a bad thing. The curiosity of the cat that they say. But also in my curiosity part is, I know a lot about many things. So you ask me about sea life, you ask me about the stars, you ask me about, like I do know, and I study a lot and research a lot, and I find it very interesting. But the beauty of that also is in an industry like ours, so I sit in strategy, innovations, tech, into that space. Everything keeps changing so fast. So it's become an advantage for me because I'll be knowing something about that, what's happening. So that's one of the things that really helps a lot when you're showing up in conversations and you're knowledgeable about bits and parts. And as you continue to grow, these things come to converge. So you'll find when people are talking about, and I've been in PwC, I can use an example. So you're talking about finance and accounting. There's somebody else who's looking at what does that then mean for the business from a strategy standpoint. But there's somebody else who's coming and say, we want this new AI and stuff. And then the CEO is asking, but how is that helping us in our... So when you're showing up in that conversation and you're able to piece all these different components together, then you show up differently. And of course, that also means that then, because we live in a very, and work in a very capitalistic corporate world, then it also gives you advantage in that sense. Do you grow up in one organization, or do you hope people say you should stay in an organization or a role at least 18 months? I've heard people say. I have a friend who, I was telling somebody yesterday, over the past, within a period of 7 years, he worked for 5 organizations. He had moved from a senior associate to a partner in a Big Four. And all of us were asking, wow. I even remember him calling me and telling me, Breton, you're not ambitious enough. Like, we don't have loyalty to these organizations. They will replace you anytime. The outlook and view that I've taken over the years, over the past decade that I have been in the corporate space, is every role gives you an opportunity to learn different things. And as long as there's the utility that I'm looking at that point, then I'll stay. And utility differs in your career. So earlier on, you're considered and recognized by your craft. So if you're a techie and your programmer, is how well you write your codes. If you're a cybersecurity person, it's how well you do that space. If you're in finance, how well you do that. And that's what shows up significant, that gives you an opportunity to grow. So if you have a role in your earlier career that allows you to actually perfect your craft, then hold that role. Then, of course, as you progress, then there are also considerations of, say, of course, as you grow, so you're also looking at compensation. And compensation is in greater fold. So the organizations that allow you opportunities to learn, they pay for your certifications, they allow you to travel, they expose you to new environments and challenges, which is a different growth. There's a utility that comes from that, and there's a stage in your career where that is extremely important. But then there's also other space in your life where you want the money, and it's really important. And of course, it's important across board, but then, the trade-offs. Then when that time comes, then that becomes a significant consideration. And then there are other instances where you're looking at flexibility. I want an environment which allows me to work just for 3 days. I don't want to pull all-nighters of PwC that I pulled. So I need that flexibility. Then that becomes consideration. So at any given point, what's helpful is just knowing what's important. What utility are you really pursuing at that point? And then when you know what it is, then pursue that and be in an organization that allows you to gain that utility. As long as it's that trade-off, I'm getting this from this organization, and it balances off with what I'm giving, then stay. If an organization allows you to grow within it, take it and stay. If it doesn't, again, keep moving. And I'll use my own example. So I've worked in a couple of organizations that's been fun, but I've also stayed in some roles much shorter than others. And I've stayed, there's an organization I've mentioned, I stayed for 7 years. And I enjoyed that place because it allowed me to grow in different ways. Yes, I changed roles in there, but it gave me that opportunity. And as long as I was there, I turned down opportunities. But then there are instances where I needed to move out of that organization because it's what I want. So at any given point is, what do I want at this stage of my career? Is this organization giving me that? If it's not, right? Yeah. So yes, at any given point. So if it's flexibility at this point, pursue that. If it is money, and it's important at this point of others, pursue that. If it is your craft, pursue that. But wisdom is, in your earlier career, pursue your craft. Once you become extremely good at your craft, I mean, and we have HR people here, that question of why are you staying in an organization, where do you want to move, and if judging that organization. But if you're really, really good at your craft, organizations will pay you off to come, even when you just end up on the other side. So build your craft, keep that balance of what utility you need in that organization, in your role at that point, and pursue that.
Thank you. So I think that's a really good point in terms of look at the utility, because different people have different needs at that time, so it would differ. I think you've mentioned compensation. I think that's usually a big motivation. And so this question is to Brian. 20 million at 19. Tell us more. What was the currency?
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good question, but so that we stick to the thought. You remember my church story?
Yes.
So just finished Excans program, and of course, one thing I always tell people, I found it true, at least it's worked for me, and it's worked for people ahead of us, ahead of me who I look up to. Anytime you put the word of God into practice, the reality of that word will check in within a very short period of time. And this is all I always say. I once motivated myself when I was joining JKUAT Karen campus back then in 2013 that already the industry has enough engineers, already the industry has enough IT experts, already the industry have enough lawyers, and the bigger percentage of those lawyers and those engineers, they are unemployed, or rather, they don't have, an income, a source of income that is, admirable, or rather they are not fully satisfied, okay? Otherwise, they would have been retired by that now. So with that reality, I prepared myself mentally early enough that, I'm going to a world that, of course, it does not favor most of the people. So you have to pick up something that, of course, will be your cutting edge, will be your post advantage. And that's why I'm happy for everyone, because you are in the right place. So I joined JKUAT Karen campus very young, at the age of, I think I was just about to turn 18. I joined in May, and I was getting my AD in October that same year. So during that time, again, my behavioral has always been the same. I always go for results. I start with the results. Ukonagari. Sorry. It's just, excuse my bias, okay? So I start with the results. Ukonagari, unaishi wapi? Then I go to the question of how did you acquire it? Does it resonate with my values? If yes, I will keep you close. If no, there's enough I can look at, okay? So with that, the same concept, of course, that's how I chose my friends in the university from a very young age. And in my class, I was lucky. 80% of my classmates, they were driving to school. So also I was very fortunate. I was being dropped to school by my military dad. So parental guiding by the backing is very important, because my dad is in the military, my mother is a teacher. So there's some sort of ethos you can borrow from a military dad and a teacher who is a mother who is a teacher. So anytime he dropped me, I first resonated myself. Yes, they are driving, but every morning I'm being dropped to school back left by a military driver. So always find yourself that, something that you will find that is a competitive advantage to your other peer. But quickly, I started learning, what do their parents do that they have actually to pack, to drive to school? So that quickly enabled me to choose the right friends very early in the university. And by second semester, I actually became one of the most influential freshers in the school, and I became an IT representative at the student leadership, JKUSO. Then on the second year, of course, I used my lunch to buy people lunch at the canteen just to grow my influence. Then by the second year, now I became the academic secretary of the institution. Of course, that are more senior level. You are an executive. So now I had more income and I had more influence within. So you will find now the students that I look forward to, they take me to their parents to introduce. Because, any student want to tell the parent, you see, I'm associating with the academic secretary of the school. Yeah. Then anytime they introduce me to the parent, I'm there to learn quickly. look for opportunities and all that. So my friend and I, we identified a problem that one of the students, the parents were struggling because you can also read patterns in the lives of people. So we noticed, of course, one time the student was driving to school, he switched cars, all of a sudden he was not driving at times. So we knew here there's an economic crisis. So he presented us with an opportunity, of course, to facilitate the parents to sell a piece of land. And the piece of land they're asking was around 100 million. Fortunately enough, through my friend who was doing law at that time, he had a buyer who was willing to buy the piece of the land at that 100 million. How he got the connections, he was interning at the Ministry of Lands. So because me, I was the intermediary, I was part of the deal. Fortunately, this guy also, again, your friends determine everything. He was the finance secretary of our student leadership board. So I was the academics, he was the finance. So you see, friends, always work with friends who are meaningful. So, and just by the one way to know that you are not doing well in life, you can measure, is when you are good with names, people names. Have you met people who know everyone? They tell you, oh, that is Ken, that is who. I'll be honest, 60% of my friends, I don't know their real names. But I find their real names in the midst of our conversation because I can point someone who knows their name. Then you say she's called, then they can tell me the name. You get? So, but anyway, back to the story about the 20 million. So we were able to, and then fortunately again, how many have read the book called Outliers? Yes, you need to develop a culture. If you have to be serious with life, you have to develop a culture of reading books from very early. Personally, I started very late at the age of 23 or 22, but you have to start it early. How many are 22 years and below? 22 years and above? So the highest have it. We are all late. So you have to develop a reading culture. So Outliers talks about people who become great in the world, who are globally known. It's because opportunities presented themselves, but there were also these people who are very ready to take advantage of those opportunities. So this academic finance secretary, the uncle was also a lawyer. So we went quickly to the uncle, and he did a very good agreement that this father of this family has accepted to sell his piece of land at X amount, which we had negotiated 80 million. So when we got 100 million willing buyer, we went to negotiate and we told the father of the guy, and that is not lying, by the way, it's negotiation. We've gotten a buyer, but the buyer is willing to give willingly 80 million Kenya shillings. So first, agree to that term. Then once you agree, sign, put it on signature with a lawyer to say that he is accepted to sell at 80 million. Then quickly, we moved to the buyer, that the buyer is willing to buy at 100. So the differential is how much? 20 million. That's how we made our first 20 million, two of us. Then how do you pay the lawyer? So anytime you're buying, selling something in Kenya, if you help someone sell something, you are entitled to a 3% commission. You can always agree. At times it can be 7%, but 3%. So this 3% of 80 million is what we use to pay the lawyer, uncle. You get? Then we told him, always don't tell the lawyer the deal. Just tell the lawyer, we told him, you will pay you 3% of the 80 million. But in your agreement, say on and above amount is ours. As we are going out, we are taking the risk to go and negotiate. So that's how that time I was living in Rongai, but fortunately the next day we moved to Runda. And at that time I was 19 years old. So that was the genesis of my career. And of course with the background information and scriptures that I'd learned from ex-cons, it sustained me for the around 12 months that we enjoyed that money before we became broke. The good thing is I became broke very early. By the time I was 20 years and a half, I was broke. I was struggling with some serious drug addiction. And also, I had experience. I had a 40 years experience in 1 year. The good thing is, once that sort of money comes, you are able to quickly quickly make very good friends and also very bad friends. So me, I made very bad friends. I could fly from, Wilson. We could take choppers at a very young age. By the time you're going to negotiate for a chopper ride from Wilson Airport to Elgon, and you are 19, even this guy asks, so who is your sponsor? We'll pay. So some context. A price of a chopper from here to, let's say, Murang'a County and back will cost you around 600,000. So what was our pride by then, at that time, we would go to a place like Murang'a and come back to Nairobi. And then in the evening when we meet our friends, we say, yani leo tumeangusha ka Probox. That was there. And it's because, so once I became broke, I asked myself, what was the differentiator when I got this money versus now that I've lost everything? And of course, losing everything meant walking from, there's a street in Runda called Eliazaguraitis Street. To give some context, it's like 45 minutes walk from inside of Runda to Gigiri where you can pick a matatu. So I walked all that to take a matatu back to the village. I come from Makueni County. And that's where I started. But I realized the only differentiator of me retaining that money or losing it, the only missing gap was wisdom. So I realized I can sell very early. So such moments, they can reveal who you are created to be. So I realized I can sell. So getting money is not a problem. The only deficiency I had was knowledge. And that's when I said, now I need to put myself in a system where I'm going to learn knowledge. So I went back to Bible school at the age of 21. I did Bible school, I finished. Then by the time now I was 22 years, fortunately, I asked the Bible, I've been practicing Christian, but that disappointment, ulikuwa umeomoka siku moja and now you are down to nothing, unapanda matatu. So I was questioning God why this really happened to me and where was his hand in this, So in that me asking, I saw that time I was going to Winners Chapel International in Mombasa Road. So there's one father I had talent spotted. Always in clean suits, coming in church with an S-Class. The wife will follow him with a nice Toyota. The children also have a vehicle to drive. So I went to one of the sons and asked, I've seen your dad is very prosperous. And even this guy is on top of the podium, facilitating church. We all see our deacons and our pastoral board. So I went to the son and asked, what is the secret of your family? This young man told me, it was not so, but what happened, I remember, was we fasted for 3 days. And that is actually what I did. So I went back to the Bible, I realized, so I checked how many people fasted and what happened when they fasted. The funny character, the most exciting character was, of course, the story of Esther. She fasted for 3 days, supported by her community, and then she became a queen. But I also met very funny characters. There is willing, full fasting, and also situational. There's one situational occurrence of a character who walked in disobedience. That's why I always tell people, anytime you see your friend walking in disobedience, ama kidogo ampoteza laini, it actually can be a transformational moment for them. This character was called Jonah. Jonah walked in disobedience, but he was swallowed by fish for 3 days and 3 nights. What was he doing inside the belly of stomach? Because he was still alive. Probably he was wishing, God, can you give me another good one chance? And of course, inside that belly, he was not eating. So he fasted. And God gave him another second chance. Another funny character I found was the story of Saul. When Saul was going to kill the people on the path, when he was on top of the donkey, he actually got blind. And he got blind for 3 days and 3 nights. Can you be blind and be eating? No way. This guy was asking for mercy and God restored his sight. And that's where the transformation of Saul to Paul came into being. So for me, I went to those funny characters. So I said one day, let me fast. And I prayed and fasted. And I told God, this time round, I'm not going to eat anything in this mouth for the next 3 days. But wisdom is profitable to direct. I took a lot of water. On that day, God told me, how many of you know Chris Kirubi the late? He was one of the leading Mongols. So when I was fasting, for the first time, at the age of 22, I heard the voice of God. He told me, tomorrow, go to Chris Kirubi's house. And that was the genesis of my career 8 years ago. The next day I woke up, I didn't know Chris Kirubi. I showed up in his compound. And because I was so sure of what God had told me, I went there and I told God, lead my words, lead my positioning on how I'm going to curate and make this relationship work to my advantage, to the glory and honor of your name. I met him in July 2018. May 2019, I joined Centum. He's the one who endorsed me as the lead of cybersecurity. So my key, the other story you can go and check on YouTube, it's there. But what is key is for me has been, it's not about, and for the 8 years, of course, that I've been with Centum, you talk about salaries and, incentives. Of course, money is good because money will make you, do something that we'll be proud of. If it's building in the village, buying a nice car, everyone wants to do that. But one thing I can look back is during these 8 years, including 1 week ago, on Monday last week, I was meeting Eliud Kipchoge in Eldoret for breakfast. So I was driving back to Nairobi with my family. I was listening to one of the sermon, and it was talking about the power of positioning. Being at the right time, so that God uses you. And, I was just being reflective of how my 8 years have been and how I've seen God move in my career, which it's good I tell you, by the age of 23, after I joined Centum at 24, I made my first $2.5 million at the age of 23 through grant fundraising, which impacted that number of young people that you've had. So I was reflecting of how those 8 years have been very impactful. And even recently when I joined Trific, within the first 8 months of operation, we raised $47.5 million. So I was just checking how we are doing the job creation and, I was reflecting how, working in career has been aligned with purpose. Then guess what happened? I get a LinkedIn notification from one of the co-founders who is leading a multinational institution in 8 African countries. And guess what is the message? We've been watching you and we want to give you a competitive offer. So when I got home, I said, yes, I will take that. I will consider listening to the offer. So I met this lady in Sarit and I listened to the offer. She offered me quite a lot, 3 times what I'm earning today. Not 3 times, maybe double. Because she was offering something between $8,000 and $10,000 net every month. But when I went back home, I sat back and reflected, it's good for me to earn money, but what sort of impact will it have in terms of other people who have benefited to me? Because this is a kingdom decision. Am I willing to look back and, live the path that God has led me towards and take advantage of this new opportunity? And the only thing I could see in the opportunity is the financial package. Anything about the impact I couldn't see. When I went to break the news to my wife that I'm considering to turn down the offer, I had to talk to my wife for 1 hour, 30 minutes to explain to her why I want to send that message. Because I was very frustrated and I knew I have to send this message. But when I called my wife to tell her that I want to turn down the offer, my wife told me, don't send the message yet, come talk. So she was trying to, but by the time we discussed for 1 hour, 30 minutes, she saw the sense. You see? So it's not always about the package. Packages will always come. It's all about purpose. It's all about whatever that you are doing. How is it impacting the person next to you? Because a time is coming when money will not really matter. What really matters is the people that you helped. Because those are the people that, if you are bringing up 2-year-old or a son or a daughter, you can call and tell them, can you mentor my son? So how many people, as God is raising you, are you raising with? Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. So, Charlotte, just to come back on your experience in Manchester and being a Shivning scholar, what's your view on academia in terms of helping one accelerate their career?
Very interesting question. What's my view on accelerating career using academia?
Academia.
It does have its place, and then also there's a place of experience. I would say my situation called for it, so that then I am not pushing forward that you must, but there's a place for it. So let me provide context. As I had shared, I was in a place where my career had hit a gridlock, and there were two possibilities for me. There was a possibility to get an opportunity internally, and then the opportunity to advance my career through academia. So the one to advance my career internally was not forthcoming. And thankfully, the one about academia came about. It was not the most interesting journey as we would imagine. It wasn't. And that's why I'm very cautious to push that as a card, because I will tell you why there are pros and then there are also cons. But at the end of the day, you get to make a determination, because really, as we know it, you live life forward and it only makes sense backward. So I'm giving this testimony of sorts because I've been able to look backwards. You know, if you asked me this question when I was living right in that moment, perhaps I would have a different response. So yes, indeed, it does have its place. It does get to expand your knowledge, which is very important. Like my fellow panelists have said, that it's important to get that knowledge. It's important to acquire that skill that will help you to advance your career. Yes, we can say there's a place where that opportunity allows you to have a key to open some doors that would seem unlocked. And in my situation, I'm very thankful to the Lord that it did, but it didn't seem that way. In fact, when I landed there, as I was going through my studies, I wanted to come back. In fact, I just realized that this thing they sell to us, that academia is, go for it and all that, maybe it is not. So I started questioning that philosophy. I started questioning whether academia is the route, because the concepts were hard. It wasn't easy because I was getting to study something that I did not have a background entirely on. I needed to have economics background. I only did 2 units in bachelor's. So it was very hard. So I was asking myself, so do I need then to leave? But I didn't have 5 million. I didn't have 5 million to pay back to the government of United Kingdom so that I could leave, because that was then the price you have to pay. But I remember prayerfully asking God, I heard you telling me to take this direction, because I had 2 choices. The choice to move upwards within the organization, that door was closing. This door opened, Lord. Show me. And God showed me. And God showed me. So I'm sharing this to say that our paths may be different. It's not always copy-paste, that Charlotte did this, so I must also do this. That's not what I'm trying to say. So in that moment, what did God tell me? After having that situational experience, that I'm regretting my own decision of having left my country, having left everybody that I knew to go to a place where I don't know anybody in the middle of COVID. And that, to me, was what you'd call being at the bottom of the pyramid. And so, yes, one of the things it then taught me was gaining a skill to look through the organizations within development finance and find out this company, what problems do they have right now? And what skills have I gained so far that I can support them to solution for? I kid you not, I did cold emails. I reached out to CEOs. I was telling them, you know what, I've been following your company. I've been looking at what you're doing. but this and this is missing out. I could help you fix it. Surprisingly, it worked. It did work, and when I came back, I was sitting with some of those CEOs in boardrooms having conversations. And so really it has its place, but consider talking to God about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Shalon. So just piggybacking on that, yeah, I can give her a clap. On solutions, I think that's what Naman kept telling us, one attribute he... So tell us more about top 40, under 40, our solutions guy.
Nilijipata tu hapo. Yeah. I keep getting this question, and I'm always struggling to answer that question. And the reason is simple. Okay, so first of all, I don't know who nominated me. I found myself there. So I was as surprised as everyone when I found myself there. But I'll say this. Proverbs 22:29. Do you see a man skilled in his craft? He will serve before kings and not obscure men. My foundation is here. In fact, yeah, because I'm a bit older than the rest of the panelists. Tulianza, I believe so, Karen. We started when Ukuchini at Fortress. What was then Fortress? Before this building was even here. And that was a parsonage where Bishop Adoyo used to stay. And there's something we learned to be. It's okay to be fat. And I'll explain what that means. Sometimes it's okay to be fat. What does fat mean? It's okay to be faithful. And it's important to be faithful. It's important to be available. And it's also important to be teachable. And with those three combinations, once you have your grounding in terms of what you've trained in, let me tell you something. You have nearly, what's the figure? There's about 969,000, the last I checked, people coming into the labor market every year. Yeah. It's a competitive process when you're all going to try and find a job and to try and get into the job market. So it's a very, very competitive space. And of course, you have your parents telling you, you need to study this kind of a degree so that you can succeed. How many people, niko na wasanii wangapi hapa? How many of you are artists in the creatives? Is there anyone here in the creatives? One? There's only one? Really? Or don't want to say? It's okay. Or how many, or two? Okay, I can see a hand here. Then those who are in, like, for example, the gig economy, how many of you are self-employed versus working for somebody? Anyone? Are you guys self-employed? Yeah, a few. Okay. So, you see, at the end of the day, once you have that baseline, the next thing that is going to move you to that next level is those three things. Because your integrity is what matters. And I've been in a place where I was the one now being interviewed, but I've also been in a place where I was interviewing people. And the one thing you realize when you're running an organization is that you ask yourself a question, do you want the superstar, your Agueros if you watch soccer, or do you want somebody who's consistent? And I'll tell you something very quickly. The people who are consistent and who have integrity are the people who you want to count, who you're able to count on, and you want to be able to push through. Now, add on top of that your purpose. It's important to align with your purpose under God and say, this is where God has put me or placed me to be. This is where God wants me to go. And when you have that combination, then you're able to succeed in life. And I'll say this, I mean, because sometimes you talk about career, you talk about jobs, and you're all looking at, okay, fine, how can I excel? How can I get this asset or that asset? I mean, I know what it means to have, and I know what it means to have nothing, because I've lived that entire life. Like Brian, I started fairly early in my career in terms of where I got to. And nikajipata, nimeanguka tena, just because of bad decisions. And it took a sort of a Damascus moment to then get that recalibration, to then come back to the path where I was able to then find my way back. And that's why you hear me say, fail forward. And what's the solution? Don't give up. You might be in a situation now, you might find you're in a circumstance or you're in a career or some kind of job which you're not necessarily proud of, or it might be a transitory thing. But what I'll say is that even in your space, even where you are, try and do the best and try and be the best person in that space that you are in. Because eventually, God will shine your light and people will see and they'll praise your Father in heaven. But importantly, that will then be able to elevate you to the next status. Yeah.
Thank you. So are we faithful, available, and teachable? Yeah. Thank you, Naman. So Brighton, back to you. We heard of the billion-dollar portfolio. Just speaking on telling people on the things we do, either through LinkedIn and other social media platforms. What do you think is the value, or does it accelerate one's career growth?
Yesterday evening, I had a call with a friend of mine who was telling me of an example of she's an HR recruiter. She was telling me there's this candidate that she was hiring, and that candidate referenced a project that she remembers somebody she had interviewed before from the same organization referencing the same project. Then this person, the way this person speaks about it, speaks like he was a Steve Jobs. He built an M-Pesa, like he changed the world. And then there's this other person that she remembers was speaking to the same project, was talking like he was just somebody within the team. Because we know them now, so this was a program manager, project manager, if I do that, a project manager in that project. This person, the other person, the Steve Jobs in this case, was just delivering a piece within that project. But the way this person speaks about it, it's like that's a person who changed the world in that project. And of course, so then the question is that misrepresentation, and what does that do to your career? My personal opinion is that it's in two parts. So there's a part about what we say we can do. And what I've seen over the years is people hold you to account to that, what you say you can do. So, that's one part. Then there's the other part of being bold and brave enough to speak exactly what you can do and show your talent, because that also sets you apart in this what we are talking about, which is very competitive. So again, what's the balance? There's a very famous book that people used to read a lot over the years. It was written by an ex-Googler lady. It's called Pivot. And what she was explaining is, when you're thinking about doing career transitions, how do you make sure that your center of gravity, you remember center of gravity from physics? It doesn't topple you. Because we've seen cases where you overpromise in interviews or you overpromise in your LinkedIn, and then you're given a role. And then when you're given that role, you do terrible at it, and therefore it crashes your career. In fact, it even has a name. It's called, I think, Peters syndrome, where you're promoted to highest level of incompetence, and then you get exposed. You guys have had that before? Yeah, until you're exposed, now we've given you that role, now you cannot do nothing about it. And there are people who've perfected the art of telling those things. So that's one part. Personally, what I do, I am balanced, or so I believe. I have a threshold learning from that Pivot book. If I can confidently deliver on a role 60% of what it requires, I will confidently speak about ability to deliver that role. The 40% have a community of people that I can pull from, and there's internet everywhere. But if it is below 60% to 40%, I'll be cautious about that. And I've also seen that because it also plays a significant part in growth, and especially if in corporate career life, there's a very big trap of growing too fast, too soon. And it traps you because then, let me just say it. So you'd have this particular individual that I know is being paid this amount of money on this particular role, but this person is very young. But that person is in an organization where, because he's been promoted to the highest level of incompetence, he's struggling to deliver on that role. But then this person cannot change organizations because here you're moving as a group chief on a particular role. Obviously, you want a similar executive role. But also there's the money part. So are you going to move from group director then to a manager where you know you can confidently deliver and then half of what you're earning, so you get a pay cut? So there's that. And it's one of the things I've been very cautious about in my growth. Grow progressively if you want to grow reliably. So yes, back to your question. Yes, if in my own judgment, I can deliver 60% on what that is, I will boldly speak about it and my LinkedIn will say it. If I know at this point in time I cannot, or it's 40% and below, I can highlight it as something I know. 40% is big, right? I mean, failure used to be, is this still the case? Okay, I teach once in a while, okay, not once in a while, a gig, yeah? And when somebody gets a 40, we give them a D, but they continue. So 40 is great. So in that sense, which then means that if I have that competence or skill set, then I'll still demonstrate it, but demonstrate it in a way that it does not overexpose me. But if it's 60% and above, my friend, it will be loud. And I'll go for interviews knowing this role, 60% I can deliver, I'm coming. 40% I can come, to just learn the lay of the land of that role so that next time I prepare for it. So that's how I look at it.
And can I just say something about LinkedIn profiles? Because I've seen some people write very interesting things. I think I will encourage people to write what you've done. So if you say you are this person in that role, also say what you did and who you helped and how that particular job that you did was transformational. That's the most efficient way of being honest. Yeah, because you can write all manner of things. You can have a title that means nothing. You can be a minister without portfolio. Or you can be somebody who has a substantive role, even if that title doesn't speak to it, but anybody who's reading that thing can see that I was a manager of sales and marketing, and during my time, we were able to run a sales campaign for CITAM, and as a result, CITAM's youth membership grew by 30% or 40%. That you're able to then track and tell. And that's how you keep yourself honest. So that's also going to be my encouragement. Review your LinkedIns, please. Thank you.
Let me just add something, and it's good you've said that. But I know we've seen this meme of I change bulbs, and then somebody writes a LinkedIn way of changing bulbs. You've seen that?
Yeah.
So we've seen people who have built a career around optimizing your visibility, brand visibility, and being able to communicate what you do and what you're capable of. And we also admit that not all of us also know how to do that. We've seen so many scenarios where somebody has a great capability and has done great, but they are not able to present that and communicate that. And fortunately or unfortunately, today's world, my recruiters go direct to LinkedIn when they're doing their search, and that's where they'll start their long listing from. So if you're not able to do that, and maybe you don't have references, then you're already starting at a bad footing. So there are people who have actually perfected the art of telling you, this is how you present it. And we've seen, say for example, you're applying for a role, or you are looking out for a role, a managerial role. So where people are looking at team leadership and such. But then the way your CV and the way your LinkedIn speaks, it speaks like a tactical delivery. Then it misrepresents you. So there's also wisdom around how do we communicate that? And I like what you've said. So say what you've done, but also be cognizant of what recruiters look for. Some guy called Calvins who helps me with that space, he will tell me, I look for keywords and I look for impact. So when you're saying, so I delivered this project, we made this much money and stuff, the way you communicate that, it speaks a lot about what you're capable of. So I'm looking for a team leader. So what does that look like? How do you represent that as you progress through? So there's wisdom also around how do you do that. And that's why personally I was saying, please make sure you put it out there, but also have that wisdom of knowing how do you want recruiters when they are searching for you to find. So your keywords and all those other fancy things that are needed, but also don't have it just basic. You know, I know we are Christians and we like to be humble, thankfully, but still, today's sermon, there are all these things that Paul could boast about. He did not just say, like, I can boast about many things. He enlisted them. So it's okay, you can enlist them, but then, you know, be humble, right? But enlist them.
Thank you. So I think, yeah, not over-promising, you know, write what you can actually do, you know, and being keen, you know, since recruiters are looking at it, keeping at it, having the keywords outlined, I think those are really good insights. So on work-life integration, I think we'll invite to make some comments on it. Just what your thoughts are on how do you balance being a mom, how do you balance being a pastor's wife, how do you balance working for a big four, you know, you're a superwoman. So maybe you can tell us, yeah, she is.
Especially now.
Yeah.
This season.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
again, there's another meme.
Yeah.
But I think who was asking this guy, how are you balancing? And they're like, I'm not balancing. But when you, I think looking back at my 8 years, that's a highlight for me because the 8 years have not only been about growth at work. I joined where I work as an associate. I was single by then got married after 2 years. Then after 3 years, we got our firstborn. So things have been happening. And it's not easy, I won't lie. But there are things you can do to make it work. Yeah, let me just explain. I was just thinking, when I said that I've been in the farm for 8 years, I had an opportunity at my 5th year to travel abroad, but I had to shelve it because of where I was at and what was happening in life. And so those are some of the sacrifices. Is it a sacrifice, really? I'm looking for...
It is.
Trade-offs.
Yeah, but I did it happily because at that point in my life, I wanted to build a family, and that meant to be in this environment. But there are things I've seen work. For example, communicating. As a mom, as a wife, there's a lot that's happening. One of the tricks I've learned is just communicate. If, for example, I wake up and Nadiv is sick, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't show up at work. But what I have control of is that I can pick up my phone and call my boss, and that's actually showing care and say, today I'm not able to show up because of this and this. This is how I plan to close on whatever is pending. But also, underpinned to that, I've learned that it's much easier when those times when you're available and everything is working well, just be known as a very reliable person. So that if there's that one day I'm calling because of the many things I'm handling in life, people can be like, yeah, this is Karen. Something must really, the reason she's not showing up, there must be something that's really happening. So it's not the same with men. Honestly, that's where I've gotten to. It's not. And I think for anyone who's juggling motherhood and career, well done. As in, if you don't get to hear it from anyone else, well done. Like in this season, I don't know how many can tell, but we are 2 of us here working late hours. It's not easy. When I say my day sometimes ends at 2 a.m. And I liked what he said that, like, maybe in this season of my life, what I need is flexibility. And that might explain why I've been there for 8 years. Familiar environments, who to talk to. So, yeah, as a mother, there have been a bit of sacrifices, but I've learned how to navigate through good communications, on the communication, seeking for help, having a supportive partner really helps. Saying how you actually want to be supported. For example, Enchebet, she's my colleague at work. She knows from January to March, it's super hectic. What I'll do with my family, I'll tell them, listen, this is how the next 3 months this is how it will look like. I won't be able to cook dinner. I'll probably be here at 10 p.m. Of course, I can't have that conversation with Nadiv, so I'll have to figure a way to work around that, but communicate to those around you as you communicate to those at home. This is to anyone who's aspiring to grow in your career as well as motherhood. It's possible. It might demand a bit of you sometimes, but just employ some of those mechanisms. Let me just give something that happened to me when I came back from maternity. I think it was a week before I got back to work after my 5 months of leave. And I get an email from one of our directors, and they're saying, we want you to lead. They were coming up with a council. It was that time where there was a lot of mandamano and all that. And they were coming up with a council called the Next Gen Council, which is a bridge between the older generation, which for us will be the directors, the partners, and then the younger generation, mostly the associates, who are the majority. And they tell me, we want you to lead it. I'm like, me? You know that imposter syndrome? I'm very soft-spoken. I'm like, me? Karen, Gen Zs, I'm a millennial, so it doesn't make sense. I'm just coming up from maternity. How do I was just trying to think, I'm a first-time mom. How do I lead a whole council? How do I sit with the regional senior partner and, put up some of the things that people are facing? How do I do that? Am I supposed to come back and reintegrate into work? Is this the time to take up new opportunities? But I was like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If I don't take it, that's done. And I prayed and I asked God for strength and wisdom, and I was like, yeah, go for it. It had not been done in that manner before, so I relied a lot from my leaders asking, so what do you want? Just understanding what the vision is. And I'm glad I did that, because out of that opportunity, I've been able to sit and interact with our Africa CEO. He actually knows me by name. Whenever we meet, he'll ask about me. And yeah, it took a lot from me, especially now that I was coming back and reintegrating to work. But I'm glad I took that opportunity. It demanded a bit of me, but I'm grateful. And it's always easier when you have a very supportive spouse. And I thank God I have one. Thank you, Cole. Yeah, so also working with the Holy Spirit, you're able to know which decision do I go for, what do I say yes to, but also knowing what are the limits. There are times I've had to say no, there's so much on my plate, I can't handle this right now. Does it mean that my colleagues, especially the men, have gone ahead because of that? Yes, but I take my wins. It doesn't have to be always career wins. I look at Nadiv, that's a win, by the way. I look at my family, that's a win. And all in all, we have to look, we can't look at success in that one dimension, especially for someone who's keen on building family as well as career. Yeah, so, yeah, it's been a ride, but I'm proud of myself so far. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Brian, just to engage you, do you think there's one habit you have that may sound boring, but it's given you a competitive edge?
Yes, of course, it's there. There's one. But just let me add on Karen's, of course, point. Of course, when I started my career also, I started as a youngster, just alone in the home. COVID happens. I realized, by the way, my life was very boring. Then, of course, that's where the idea about marriage started coming in. And, of course, I started being on the lookout. And by God's grace, God fully settled me when I was 27. And as that really impacted my life, I can say yes. In career, marriage is very key. And I work with young people in my team. My team is full of young people. Age 25 and below. And one thing I notice is these guys are very ambitious. They have had the best education. Some of them, they have went to school in the UK. Then now they're just coming back, trying to understand how Africa works. Are they here to stay? Maybe not. They are still keen and looking. One of my colleagues is going back to the UK to do his master's. So one thing I realize is they are very averse once it comes to commitment. They don't want it. I always throw those ideas and check. Are you looking forward to settle? Do you want to start a family? But the Gen Zs, by the way, they don't want. They say maybe at 40, and those are the gens. At least at times also, wisdom is profitable to direct. If you are a young leader, there are some conversations you don't discuss with the opposite gender, not to send the wrong ideas. So for me, at least, I ask the young men. So I ask them, are you looking forward to settle? They say no. So if you ask them why, they say, it comes with a lot of responsibility. It ties me down. I feel I just want to explore more. Like they give you all the reasons. But then, you cannot live the life, a perfect life, outside the scriptures. You always have to go back to the scriptures. Yes, because there is where the geopolitics is going. There is what the first world they are saying regarding marriage. But what does the good book say about marriage? And one way to quickly, have a landing and a safe space is locate one character in the Bible that you resonate with. If you are a gent and you're in the market space, is it a Daniel? Is it a Joseph? Is it a David? Do you resonate with those characters? If you are a lady, is it an Esther? Is it a Hannah? Is it a Mary, the mother of Jesus? Is it who? Rebecca? Is it the lady who washed is it also the Queen of Sheba? God forbid. So just find characters. Then now go back to the Bible story. Start digging about their early formative habits, life, what they used to do, what they used to like. Then try and find if they made critical decisions that you are required of, at what age did they make them? Because, there's nothing, even the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun. You can find it in scriptures. So for me, I chose the path of settling early. And of course, in the next year, I think I was 28. I was just about to turn 28 when we got our firstborn. My wife was, of course, working also in the career space. And she was working as consulting for one of the leading big firms in terms of comms. And we had to make a very huge decision because it was, and by the way, I give big respect. This is how I do order of hierarchy in terms of respect in my institution. And I've also realized it's the same. So once it comes to giving ladies positions of leadership and also listening to them, because also, as men, we always have a bias. We want to listen from our fathers, but when we are in trouble, we want to run back to our mothers. That's always the beat. So even in career, it's the same. So you'll find if you are very ambitious, you want to go to talk to the male versions of yourself. But when you are not performing, you want to go and confide with the ladies within the institution. So it's always a balance of both. So there are people who I give respect. Anytime a lady tells me I'm a mother, because I've seen it firsthand, I take a pause and give them much honor and gratitude because I've seen how it transformed my wife, of course. It came to a point where we had to make a very critical decision where, of course, my wife was expected to go back to work 3 months after we gave, our son came into the picture. Were we ready? No. So we had to make a very critical decision. And my wife, we prayed about it, and we said, let's take a leap of faith, and she resigned. Is it the best decision we took at that point? At that position, yes. Has it worked for us? Yes. And as I always say, this thing about marriage, you have to do it with God. You cannot replicate. You cannot say, this is how so-and-so did it, let's do this way. No. Resonate with God. Because this is the miracle. So once my wife resigned, the next week, she resigned on a Friday. The next week on a Friday, I was promoted. And the exact amount of salary that she was earning was put in mine. Then I realized, and then, of course, as I was getting excited about my salary increment, I was told that bit that has been added is not for you. It's for your wife. Because of the work she's doing, it's a lot of work, guys. Okay? So, and over that time, God has increased us time to time because anytime we come to a crossroad and we feel, this is the time to make a shift, of course, God has always showed up. But now coming to your question, Remind me, the question was about...
It was on habits. It was
habits.
really well, yeah.
Yeah, the question was about boring habits. So I used to go, I grew up like any other young person, even those who pretend they don't do those things. So I used to, because of my military backing, I used to come back home very early. My dad had a rule for us. 6 p.m., there's nothing like group discussion for 6 p.m. You have to be back at home. Because at that time we were living with my dad in Nairobi and my mom was she teaches in the village. So we were the cooks, the iron, kupiga pasi, cooking for the mzee, making sure his shoes are ready. So we have to be back, me and my elder brother, so that we can delegate duties and reassign. So when I got freedom, of course, and I moved to Rongai, then to Runda, of course now I had the freedom to start going out. And you know what, during that season when I was now in depression and trying to recover after I became broke, I started asking myself, what is that one habit that has not really helped me? And I found out going out is one, just going out for the fun every Friday evening, it didn't really help me, you see? And when I got my job, my first job, permanent job at 23, one thing that stood out for me is, as my colleagues would be planning to go out every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, most of the time I was at home. At times even I'm not doing anything, I'll just be at home, cook and sleep. But that made my mind become very much sober. Over time, have I seen that cumulative benefit of that habit? Yes. It's good to be boring at times because out of that boredom is once I found I can actually read a book. And when I speak, you can actually read some sort of sense from my speech. So, and I noticed that also benefited me from growing from a graduate trainee at my point of entry, an intern, all through now to head in business development, not only for Triffic, but also for the Centum Group. Centum, we are the owners of Two Rivers. Just to bring the context. So Two Rivers, you go to Vipingo, we have projects in Entebbe, we are shareholders in Isuzu, you all read books in Longhorn Publishers, we have a shareholding in that. If you fly KQ, we are the ones serving food to you inside there. CDN Bank, which is now becoming Tier 1, we are the one who grew it before it became a part of the big banks. So we have done a lot of things. We are the ones who brought Coca-Cola into there. So Centum is a big institution. This is just to say in a humble way. But one thing I found all through, I'm going to say something controversial, by the way, it's not linked. But one thing that I've noted in this boredom is if you're choosing to go the path of leadership, number one, it's more demanding. Like today, my wife is not here because she's taking care of our son. Our son is, by the way, he's high energy. He always comes to play the drums here when you guys are not meeting here. So I've been here a couple of times. But anytime she's not in, our son is not in church, we've put him to play, either playing soccer, piano, whatnot. So today he's playing somewhere, and my wife is, it comes, do I want to be there as a father? Yes. But does purpose call me to be here today? Yes. So it's always, as a leader, you have to be selfless. You have to always know there is a bit where you'll make a sacrifice. There is a bit where you will, choose to be selfless and not to meet the demands of the home, but be a present father in terms of providence, providing for your family, and most importantly, standing in the gap because you are the priest of the home. So anytime I'm on the road, I'm interceding for my family, for my wife, for my son. Anytime I get home, I am interceding and I'm making declaration about. And this is that controversial statement I was to make. As a great leader, one thing that you should always pray to God to give you is 2 big ears. Why is it important? You have to develop the habit of listening to people. And leadership starts from home to your workplace, and even when you guys start getting children, even to your children. Because there are things that I've listened. My son is fond of saying, listen to God. Anytime he sees maybe I'm pissed because he's done something and I'm trying to discipline him, he always comes and tells me, Daddy, listen to Jesus. So I'm like, okay, is Jesus trying to tell me this is not the correct way? Or, so it's always good to listen. And once you become a good listener, trust you me, you will become a good leader. But one thing I will also encourage you as a young person, this is the time to read. Leaders, okay, I get it, time is up. But leaders are readers. You cannot be a leader without reading. Because your greatest tool of influence is your mouth, your tongue. The Bible says in Psalm 81, open your mouth and I will fill it with the right words of counsel, with so many other things, okay? So as a leader, you are not allowed to open your mouth if you are not reading. So put targets for you, yourself. And you cannot be a good leader if you don't lead yourself as a young person. So start reading, start putting. And how do you read? You don't just go reading any other book. First, locate your purpose. A book that I can recommend that helped me locate my purpose, young early, is a book by Miles Monroe. It's written about the power of purpose. So it helps you on how you can be able to check in and be able to discover your purpose. Then once now you discover your purpose, me, I'm not interested in reading sports because I'm not good at sports. I'm not interested in listening to news. I don't even have a team, but I know Arsenal is on top of the league. But it's not of my interest because that's not. But anything business, who are the companies that are investing in Africa in this time and age? What sectors are investing in? Those are things that I'm keen to listen. What is Kenyan demographics? If you're learning economics in the university today, you need to realize that every year, 1 million graduates are graduating from the university to enter the job market. And only 100,000 out of the 1 million are able to get jobs. These can either be short-term jobs, internship opportunities, or even long-term. So we have a lot of 900,000 that does not get job. So that was my area of calling of purpose. Because one time I was praying to God and asking God, since I finished university in 2016, now we are in 2018 January. I have no job that I can say it's permanent that draws me to purpose. Then I realized I've been praying the wrong prayer. So I told God, instead of you blessing me with a job, I've come with a better prayer. I'm negotiating. Use me for young people to get jobs. At that time, it was it was just a crazy prayer, alternative. And that is what has glued me into purpose today. Today, what we do, we create opportunities for young people. So as we leverage as a company, we've leveraged on these 900,000 people. How do we locate job opportunities for 900,000 people who are coming from the job market? Then we've gone to the Kenyan law. We've realized the Kenyan law, you can take advantage of the Kenyan law and be able to offer international global investors opportunities where they can come, set up business in Kenya, and not be able to, or rather, they be exempted from taxes. Okay? Every investor wants to hear that. But what is the trade-off? Tell them, now you have to employ 80% of your total workforce has to be from Kenya. That way, have I solved an economic issue? Yes. How? All these 80% that have been employed by this company, they are going to pay something called payroll taxes. Pay as you earn. It's normally 35% upwards. Okay? That way, the government is able to collect more. And if you are, let's say, an IT guru or a manager at PwC, chances are, if you're employed, you will need a nanny, you'll need someone to help you at home. Okay? So that means, as long as we retain, and you look at, as we focus on business services, where it's just a company coming to outsource business services, accountants, salespeople, business development, data structuring, personnel. All those people will realize that all those companies, they spend a lot on salaries. So if we can bring so many companies in Kenya that are employing people who are offering soft services, we can expand the number of people who are paying taxes. And why is that important? Is because, as I finish, out of a population of 60 million, we are around there, 55 to 60 million. Do you know how many people in Kenya are employed today? Sadly, it's only 3.5 million Kenyans are employed. And out of that 3.5 million, only 2.5 are in stable jobs. And out of those 2.5 million, 1 million are public servants, or rather wameandikwa na serikali. So the private sector is only creating employment opportunities for 1.5 million. So anytime you hear house levy has gone up, payroll taxes have, bei ya mafuta imepanda, it's not affecting 60 million people. Primarily, it's affecting these 3.5 million people who are carrying the weight of the economy. So what we are trying to do in the next maybe 5 years is to create, even if it's 5 million more jobs in Kenya, then that way, at least not a small population will carry the weight of everyone else. But how do we do that? So, and that is how you collectively do, you are able to analyze whether you are working in purpose. Because I always give a joke. If you go tonight to pray for rent, and maybe rent or something else that is very important that you can pray for someone, what is important? School fees. Another thing, what is more important to pray? If you are told God will answer one prayer for you today, personal, what is it that going to be? Job. Leave about job. I want something that money can solve. Food. So yes, most people are praying, most Christians today are praying for food, rent, shelter, and clothing. Okay? And that's why maybe 90% of the prayers you will walk and say, I feel like our God does not answer prayers. Because this is the reason. The person who is praying for money to pay rent, and then me, I show up. You know, we call it we call the presence of God. You have to go and petition. Why do you really need it? If you go and pray for your food and rent, and someone comes into that prayer room and is saying, God bless me because I have 100 employees who I want to pay salaries for. So even if you are God, which prayer will you answer first? Is it this one for salary or is this one for employees? You see, if God answers one prayer of someone who wants to pay 100 employees salaries, He's answered all those prayers. Okay? So be that one person who can be able just to put together one prayer, but the impact of that prayer is with heavy duty. Even God will send Angel Gabriel to deliver it.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah. So our last question is on mentorship, and this goes to Naman, Charlotte, and Brighton. Could you tell us maybe a connection or a particular, individual who was behind the scenes, but they really helped you in your career trajectory, and what role would mentorship play in helping, young professionals grow? So I'll start with Naman.
Yes, I've had a couple in my life. My very first job was forensic accounting. So where we were doing an audit of a business that was going south, and we needed to find out why. And my then boss, that was the very first job that I got. And I learned from them excellence. She was very good at her job, career woman. It's interesting to note. She ended up being the CFO, the African CFO of one of the largest multinationals on this continent. So she was the CFO. And her juggling her time was quite something to watch. So I learned a lot from her on that score. Even my subsequent bosses, I also learned what not to do from some of my bosses. But those who I could call my mentors and have remained my friends, have been people who've always held to excellence. But it needed me to have a teachable spirit and to just be willing to sit under them so that I could learn from what they can see. Because sometimes, when you're young, you feel like you know, and that maybe this person does not know, or is just being difficult. But sometimes they have the benefit of foresight, and they're able to just zoom out and give that 360-degree perspective. So you get answers, and sometimes they don't make sense in a work environment. It's because that person can see everything that you cannot. So that's one of the mentorship. You need a mentor that is able to just deliver that to you and just give you the benefit of experience. And once you have that, then now you're able to just grow systematically and progressively through. There's something that my train of thought has gone, but I wanted to just speak to, and it will come back and I will say it. Yeah, Karen.
That's okay. Charlotte, maybe you can.
Great, thank you for that question. When I think about mentorship, what comes to mind is being built, being made better. And I found mentors in books, I found mentors in people who are older than me, and I found mentors in people who are younger than me. And each of those three categories have served their own purpose. For example, one of the greatest books I've read, and perhaps if you're looking to read to find a book that could change your perspective, that changed mine, was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. That book changed my mind. And I do realize that most of these people who write books, they do borrow so many things from the scripture in some way or the other. They just don't credit God. But there's one thing I learned there, that creation happens twice. It first happens in your mind, and then it becomes a reality. So I have learned the power of allowing only good thoughts in my head, because I do know that that thought, should it marinate just a little longer, it could just manifest. So many things that I've gotten to walk through have been through that philosophy, but also I've had a great privilege of having mentors who are older. Some of them have been colleagues, and some of them have been family. And the one thing that stands out, and perhaps I could share here, that one of my mentors once told me, that create relationships long before you need them. And one thing you'll realize about this life, you will always need people. But don't run to somebody just right there. Everybody has this fascination, at least the ones that I know, with being needed, isn't it? Right. But how about cultivating a relationship before you need to use that opportunity that the friendship or the relationship could offer you? Are we together? Do I need to explain it further, or you got it? Thank you. And the ones who have been younger have also taught me maybe the things I missed out on, and the things I could pass on grace to myself as I grow older. And so I've realized that, yes, Charlotte, I could have missed an opportunity here, but this young person who is giving me reverse mentorship is teaching me, hey, take it slow. Look at it differently, reframe your perspective. So I've gotten the beauty in listening in even to younger people who have mentored me in that way.
Yeah, I remember
Thank you,
Dot wanted to say.
Yes.
And she's actually just spoken about it. I wanted to speak about reverse mentorship. So one of the advisory roles that I have right now is looking at a mentorship program. And there's 5 stages, I think, in career progression. So you have entry, you have retention, you have progression, you have thriving, and then you have leadership. And so at the top, you probably have the leaders who then mentor the younger people or people at thriving. Those are the people at the pinnacle who then make a decision whether they're going to head the institution or they're going to move out to do something else. But the reverse mentorship is this. So for example, if you're looking at it from the point of view of, say, Gen Z, the Gen Z are probably better with technology than the millennials or Gen Xers would be. So you'd probably be looking to pair a Gen Z like 10, 20, 30 of these millennials or Gen Xers to try and tell them how this whole AI thing is working, because it's creating so much disruption. And then now you're able to create value. And I mean, also just understanding that it doesn't always have to be 9 to 5 to extract value, but somebody can actually 10x their time and their value by just utilizing technology and making it a better workplace to function. Yeah.
Thank you. Breton, any?
So there's been 3 aspects to that. So we've had people talk about mentors, role models, and most recently there was a lady who did a TED talk and spoken about sponsorship. And personally, from my experience, what I've seen is okay, so I started off as an engineer, as a telecommunication engineer, and have had several pivots in my career to many different things. I said I'm very curious, so that sometimes gets me into many different spaces, but it all converges. Now it does. Almost every of those transitions I've had, there has always been people who've helped me guide and inspire me, and sometimes even push me to step out. One of the most outstanding example for me is I left Safaricom on Friday, and Monday I reported at PwC. And I did that. My manager then at Safaricom told me, you go. When you go with this note, take it to this particular person. Tell them I have sent you. And then the note was saying, this is those type of people. Expose this person to this type of opportunities, they are not going to stay for long. So that, and then of course, I didn't want to go because, long story. But she sent me, and we took a while before we informed HR that I've left. But she took such a big risk to let me go from our team. In fact, she called me over lunch and told me, so you're the sort of people who give me trouble here. So then she said, so I've been here for 14 years. Now I had this function. But you see, so there's me here, there are these two people here, there are those other people there, and then there are those, and then you're joining the queue at the end. Unlike most of the people that I'm dealing with here, the kind of questions you're asking me, they are questions that ordinarily Bob worries about. That was back in late Bob's time. So you're different, and she helped me unpack what it is. So she showed me, like, look, there are people who go through technical track, and then there is you who is trying to, so what happens behind these screens that we are looking at, and then after that, and all that, then she ushered me into this opportunity to go and explore, and she showed me, and she walked with me through that journey. And today she's remained one of my greatest mentors. So there is that. I've also seen, and I wanted to speak about that differentiation, I've also seen scenarios where I've looked up to people to guide me, especially say in career world where they are progressing. But then over time, when you get too close to them, you realize they are not using ways and means that you'd want to emulate. So for me, what I've done is, the person I consider my mentor over the last over 15 years and plus, it's someone that I admire how they show up in their family. I like how they live their biblical principles in their life, in their businesses, in the corporate world and that. And that has been the person that have worked with me. But also because of that, then they've allowed me into their world. So I'm able to see the mistakes they are making. I'm able to learn through. Because we've also seen scenarios where, and even for us, when we've progressed, we curate the version that we want people to see. So when I have mentees, there's this version that I expose to them. And there's this what I tell them, but I don't tell them about the bad and the ugly that comes with all those things. So for me, the true mentor is that person who allows you into that world. And in the Bible, we have that triad of Paul, Timothy, and mentorship in the Bible, it's Paul, Timothy, and CBR people. It's not even Silas. But anyway, moving on swiftly. Anyone? For lunch? On me? Yes? No? Mentorship in the Bible, Paul, Timothy, and who? If you're confident, say it loud. We'll tell people in CBS to enroll all of us. So anyway, so back to that. So that's what I've found for mentorship. But as you continue to go through life, career, and all other things, there are different needs that you have at any given point. And there are people who have hacked in that space. So in different words, I've had people call them loosely as sponsors. But somebody who comes and tells you like, hey, there's this place I'm venturing into, and I'm seeing you excel in this space. Please teach me how to do it. What has worked for you? But also, could you allow me to tap into your social and professional equity for you to speak about me in those spaces and offer me those opportunities, to give me that chance? There's that, I was referencing that, there's a famous TED talk where a lady talks about that sponsorship. Somebody who has seen your work and speaks your name in those big boardrooms when you're not there, and they're saying, I am willing to bet on this particular person because of ABC. So we have those people across the board. And as I conclude on that, somebody was telling me that part of my work, so I look after big projects, digital projects. And the bigger part of that work, like 40%, is politics management. And let me tell you, there is no Wharton or Oxford or Yale MBA prepares you for corporate politics. None. And so you have these PowerPoint presentations that are showing up to the board or group X committee, and when you show up, the conversation shifts and it becomes chaotic. So what I've seen work for me is, I have seen people who've navigated through those spaces and they've learned what works. And they're like, hey, I'm in this space, this is what I'm dealing with tomorrow. I'm making a presentation about ABCD, and these are the dynamics, these are the people that are meeting etc. So how do you navigate? And we go through that and they prepare me for that. So again, those are different dimensions to it, but yes, fundamentally, for me, a mentor through life, not just career, because holistic, as she was mentioning, which is something I liked, they are all wins. So family, career, your social life, your health, your financials, all those things form up a unit. So if you are to look up to someone and work with someone, it should be somebody who, through those spheres of life, the wheels of life as we call them, they have a way that they can walk with you through that and you can learn through that. And then our different needs that you have within your career life or social life or etc., then you can tap into these seasonal people or mentors also that can walk with you through those spaces.
Thank you so much, Brighton. So I think you've mentioned corporate politics, there are all these, workplace tactics. So I think our question is, how do you consistently show up as a Christian and maintain your values in such, a corporate setting where there are all these challenges? Maybe we could have Karen take us.
Thank you. And allow me to answer it a bit differently. One of my most consistent struggle, apart from being a Christian, is just being a soft-spoken person and how to navigate company politics. I think at my workplace, because we really stand for integrity, not the best time to say this, but believe it or not, I've never found myself in situations where I've had to compromise or I'm asked to compromise. But one of the greatest challenges I've had is being, one, a lady and a soft-spoken lady and navigating company politics, especially in an environment that's very male-dominated. So one of the things that I quickly learned, it's very good to be self-aware, because sometimes as a quiet person, you might get the work done, but no visibility. And someone will just come and steal your shine, especially in the structure, the kind of structure we have in audit, where you do work, then you're asked to present to the partner. So if you're not able to correctly communicate or confidently communicate, you'll always have that one person saying, okay, you've done, neza kupresentia. And what that will do to you is you'll never be seen. And truth is, visibility is very key. And I like what Brighton talked about, just optimizing your visibility. And if it's okay, you can share some of the ways you went around that, especially on LinkedIn, people we can reach out to. I think personally I need help with that, and there could be other people here who would need help. You just don't know the language to, But as a soft-spoken person, I think the last year I just asked God, teach me, because to survive in this environment, I need some visibility and I need to know how to communicate the work that I've done and to do so confidently. This is a very personal opinion, I find it that men find it so easy to do it. A man will have done 30%, but the level of confidence that they will present that work. And I always used to wonder, where are these men so confident, And for a lady, you'll have done work at 100%, and then you'll present it at 50%, always doubting yourself. So in our office, there's a corner that's made up, they're called alpha men. I'm a macho man. Imagine me, I went and squeezed myself there. And I said, because you're only like 3 ladies, I want to learn how is it that they get so confident? And with time I've realized it's not like they know so much, but they just have a confidence, honestly. But like there are instances I actually know as much as they do, or maybe more, but the confidence at which they present themselves makes, So I went and just nikajieka kwa hiyo kona. When they're going for lunch, me, I accompany them. At least 3 out of 5 days, I hang out with them. I want to get, how is it that you get yourself to this place of confidence? What's that thing? And what I told them is whenever I'm making presentations, especially to partners, you guys, after that presentation, come and give me feedback. So I remember the first time I made that presentation, one of them came and told me, yeah, the content was there, but the, he's even saying, make me believe it, on those numbers, whether you're right or wrong, if you're asked a question. And I think over the last 1 year, I've seen a lot of change in me, and I've just learned why it's very important to be self-aware. If you're someone that struggles with confidence, and this for me has worked, those are my peers, they're not my bosses, but just find people who do something very well, especially something that you struggle doing, and stick to them and try to learn what is it that makes them different, how do they get to that level of thinking. But equally, especially when we talk about people, I make sure that bit of empathy comes out, because I know it's also a strength. So I'm not going there to change myself entirely, but I know, like sometimes I'll hear them say, that person cannot be helped. And I'm like, no, you can't write off someone. Have you tried coaching them? And I make my opinion very clear. But I've also seen a lot of improvement where sometimes I know something, but I'm presenting it very shakily, and they've really helped me with my confidence. So that's just on peer mentorship. I think maybe I leave it to someone else to cover on the bit of Christianity. For me, that has not been a struggle that I've had, given how our workplace works. The main struggle has been, how do you, as a soft leader, someone who's soft, how do you navigate company politics? And lastly, I wanted to keep it very short. As I said earlier, on a typical day when I'm not stressed, I listen to the diary of the CEO. And I've listened to some topics and people who come and say, how do you read a room? How do you talk? How do you stand when speaking to people? How do you take different cues? Even your facial expressions. There was this lady talking about different people have different resting faces. Like for me, my resting face, if I'm just niko sawa tu, you'll think I'm tired or I'm worried. And there are ways to, no, I'm very serious. And some people just look like they are frowning. So there's just so much to learn about yourself, about reading the room. And just one of the meetings we were having, and everyone presented while speaking. And when it got to my turn, because I'd listened to a podcast, I just said, I'll just stand and face people because I want to take reactions. And as I was presenting, I noticed one of the partners doing this. I'm like, yeah, Steve, do you have a question on that? And we were able to engage. And one person asked me, why did you make that decision? And I was like, I learned from somewhere that it's always good to face people when talking to them so that you're able to get reactions. So there are things you can do to get better. It's to know when someone is doing this, like there's a partner at our workplace, you get to his office and he's doing this, just know, be brief, be bright, be gone. And you're able to read, that's their mood. You need to be concise. There's nothing like, good morning, how are you? How was your weekend? You could just get there and say, hi, I'm here to do this and this. So there are tactics which we can read from the different resources that we have available. But for me, just being self-aware and sticking around people who are doing or whose strength is what is your area of development. Yeah.
I wanted to say, I think we may actually need to just have a dedicated session to have conversations about that whole corporate politics and that. Because truthfully, now we know, now speaking from experience, you can be as competent. 2017, I walked into this office and I met this lady, and she had stayed in that organization for a couple of years, and I asked her, so what's the lay of the land? How do I prepare? And she told me, if that organization has hired you, it means you're competent at your work. But then there's something else you must learn. You must learn the power plays that happen in corporate space. I was young, I didn't even know what that was, so of course it didn't matter much. And now in my current role, as I was mentioning, I don't even think it's 40, it's like 60 or 80% of my work is really around that. And it's extremely exhausting. But as she was saying, there are aspects to how you manage that, there are tactics. But to a question about Christianity, what I've seen work is at the forefront, let people know that they can expect this from you, they cannot expect this from you. So I'm involved in projects that I've mentioned, and they are like $500 million and above money. So when you're going there, people have self-interest and stuff. So of course, at the onset, you're like, I can compromise on this part, compromise like on timelines and stuff, but this is the hard line I cannot cross. And when you make it very forthright at the upfront, people know, don't bother. And it saves you a lot of those spaces. So I'm a Christian, integrity lines I can't cross. So it becomes very clear. Now, these other spaces, one of the things that I have seen work, ultimately, there is science and art to how we show up and navigate through corporate politics, or even the other space. That's why you'll see a lot of books that are very profound. They are anchored on the psychology and neuroscience of human behavior, decision tree, or decision architecture and things around that. And it's one of those things I keep saying, I think it's a life skill. Everyone should have basics of psychology. Because at the core of every decision, there are roots to how that decision is made. And you've seen how it shows up even in relationships, right? So we have that. So while at it, then you know, if I'm showing up in corporate spaces, there's a way I can present a communication. I have to learn the room, as she was saying, so I know, okay, so I'm presenting this. This person is going to be an essayer. This person needs a level of motivation. This person likes to be included up front. So when I'm showing up, like, I have discussed with this person up front. People call it mobilization, but I ran it through. So what do you think about this idea? It's an innovation when you do, and you see that thing you keep talking about. This person will show up in that conversation and will be thinking that is his idea. It's work I do in transformation. So there are tactics around it, and a whole lot of it roots to the psychology of human behavior and decision tree. So yes, corporate politics, I think that needs a whole session by itself.
Okay, no one.
Yes.
Can I just encourage you? I think the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, humility, and self-control, those are actually values that corporates also value and that drive corporate. So even as you're living in your faith, imagine as a Christian, you still are able to excel. So I'll encourage you, it's not a hopeless situation like people always make it seem, but that's your ability to be trusted, your integrity, your ability to have a big heart like Karen is speaking to. Those are actually things that are valued in the corporate space. And if for nothing at all, it forces you to be very creative in how you solve things. Because some people are in jobs where I say they're pretty much encouraged to lie. People who have to communicate certain things and you're being told that you have to communicate in a certain way. You don't have to. There are ways you can find to communicate the truth and just get your message across. So let me encourage you, even as you live as a Christian and you live in your purpose, you can still excel. And you can still just show, you can make God proud of who you are, who his child is. Yeah.
We'll have insights from Brian, and then we'll have 2 questions per section from the audience.
So speaking about, hello, you can hear me? Yes. Oh, it was okay. Okay. I'll prefer to go wireless. Anyway, just on a lighter note. Speaking about mentorship, I would like to share, for me, my personal approach. Of course, it came in very early. Of course, being mentored by Dr. Chris Kirubi as my first mentor. And what I saw as a benefit of this mentorship is, number one, if it's of purpose, then you're able to retrieve a lot of value from it. Because anytime you see someone having an accelerated growth, the truth, if you dig deeper into the truth, they have to be reading from a different script from what other people are reading. But how do you identify mentors is very critical. So my approach has always been, number one, for you to even start thinking about family, number one, you have to be economically straight. Okay. You have to address first your economic matters. Are you living by yourself? Are you able to meet a few responsibilities that require capital? Then from there, you can be able to start growing other things like family, leadership, and all that. So it's always good to check within your circles who is within a career that you admire to be part of. Do you want to join the financial sectors? Then ask yourself, can you reach out to them? If you can't, nowadays there's YouTube. You can literally know everything about James Mwangi of Equity without having to meet the personality. Okay? You can just go read about them, their biographies, what they did, what they studied it, what they've specialized in, what their strategy is. Then just read about from their biographies. Then start applying what you've learned, because the Bible encourages us of something. Don't just be hearers of the word. Be ye doers. So when you learn from church today about hearing, tomorrow start doing what you've learned. Then once you sort out your economic thing, you can start now thinking about your social. Where are you headed as a person? Are you looking forward to family? That's where, again, the matter of family valued people within the society you can acquire. So once I joined Centum, and I got, of course, and also there are gatekeepers the people who will present an opportunity for you. So I knew that CK opened for me an opportunity to be at Centum. I cannot always run back to him for him to influence other leaders for me to be promoted. So that's where now diligence comes in. What you've been given to do, can you be able to do it excellently? Okay? Then once you do that, of course, there are now the people who identify talent. They do talent spotting within the institution. So I worked in the institution that I'm currently working in for 5 years with only 2 opportunities to appear before the group CEO. And by the second time I was appearing through the group CEO, I was reporting on what I had done with the 2.5 million grant that I had gotten and what was the scale of impact, and how was that aligned to their values of the company. So once I presented to him, he actually picked an interest because he asked me a question, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And even maybe long term. So I took now opportunity of that, and then he started recommending books. You see, that's how you start pulling. If you meet a mentor today and he tells you, go and read about this book, seven habits of a highly effective leader or person. Go and read that book. Once you read the book, give feedback to the person who gave you a recommendation. And you realize you start having the same thought, the way they solve decisions or they do critical thinking, you will realize you start to develop that neurological patterns in terms of decision making. And as time progresses on, you become an ally. And once you become an ally, they will be able to critique you directly. And that, of course, will come with a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure. You can lose your job very shortly because your expectation is very high. But also now that is where God's come into the picture. Because the right leadership without God in the picture is headed straight to the person losing the job and straight to you becoming a failure. Because you'll start being braggadocious or kiburi, I'm mentored by the boss and the boss. That's why you need now God. Now you tell God, help me maximize this opportunity that you've given me. And there's always a way I always measure success. So I always imagine it's a very weird thought, but it's a very good thought. I always say, God forbid, tomorrow we wake up and anyone who is older than me by 1 year, by even 1 day, they pass on. And I'm the eldest person in this nation. Can I look back to my generation and I tell them confidently, I can be able to take the steering of leadership, and do I believe that I can lead them towards the right direction? If you can't answer that question as yes, or probably yes, then you are also headed towards the wrong path. So as you go home today, ask yourself, today I'm 27 years. If anyone who is 27 and a day old passes on, will you be able to lead the society or your circle of influence towards the right direction? If you can't answer that question, then just take some time, pray and fast, rethink about your life. All is not lost. And gather resources and books that can help you quickly access. But in all your gathering and getting, seek the presence of God, because it's very key and pivotal towards making sure that your longevity is long-lasting, and of course, it glorifies God at the end of the day.
Thank you, Brian. So we'll take a few questions from the audience. So in case someone has a question, we'll start with her on this side, and I think the gentleman at the back. Then we have a question on the second row here. One more question. Okay, at the back there. So we could start with your question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Manasseh Gitua. I don't know, trying to put us together. All right. Okay, so my question is around what we say no to. Probably I can give a bit of context. I'm 19 years old, and I started in government. Started working with the government, I think when I was around 13 as a children's rights advocate, and then transitioned to corporate around 17. Worked with a marketing agency, and then after that went now to working with organizations. Worked with UNICEF, and then now I'm working in Total News. And last year, I was directed to God, and I think that's when I was given start of last year, like your mandate, build platforms for children and young people. And okay, let me say this. Right now, I am facing so much. There's times that you're praying for opportunities, and then there are times that now you're facing very many of them. Like right now, I am in some advisory boards. And I'm in school, and it's overwhelming. And sometimes, and I think it's also maybe because I'm clinically diagnosed for ADHD, I get excited when these kinds of opportunities come, and then along the way you kind of how do I say this? Because I don't know do I say no? Because like right now there's an edtech thing, they've given me something they want me to work with them on. Also I'm organizing an entrepreneurship summit for high schoolers, and trying to get partners. Got an MIT to come and gift to get a scholarship for the lead and all those kinds of things. And it can be overwhelming. I can say this, I don't even have a social life. I'm trying to create, I think that's why church is very important, because church is the only place I come, and it's overwhelming. I'm sweating right now. It's overwhelming. Thank you. I don't know who can be able to answer the question, but thank you.
Maybe we take the questions, and then we'll have the panelists respond. So the first question is relating to balancing. Okay, Numan will take it. Then there's a second question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Neema, and thank you all, because the way you guys have presented yourself, you've really added a lot. I particularly like the tall guy. I've forgotten your name. For this reason, I like the way he was so straightforward in saying that he had an opportunity to deal with a lot of money, 20 million, and he lost it all, because I kind of identify with him. I also admire the next guy who said that he went into a dive, and he somehow managed to come back, to have a bounce. Thank you, Karen, for what you're sharing. If you need a few tips on how to be confident, talk to me at a small fee. I'll share with you. Thank you, the other lady. I salute your journey, though I wish you had talked about a bit of your laws. I identify a lot with people who share laws. Now, for Brighton, at least I remember your name. It's simply because you offered a lunch and nobody was able to pick it up. But you also asked a question that I want to know. It was Timothy, it was Paul, Timothy, and who after that? I need you to answer that so that we close that chapter and move on to other things. Other than that, I also wanted to know more about your downs. I haven't heard you talk about anything in your career upcoming. What is your background? Where were you having some lows for you to get the ethos, the impetus to be where you are? Thank you.
Thank you. Then there's one at the back.
Just a quick one. My interest is to know, sooner or later, after several years in corporate, people begin to have the question that you want to transition to maybe entrepreneurship. Maybe you feel like you have something on your own which you want to try out. My question is generally, what are your thoughts on the transition to maybe sole entrepreneurship and the wisdoms around it? And maybe any of you have tried anything of that sort as at now. Thank you.
And we had the last question here at the front.
Praise God. I'm Princess Wanambisi. And thank you so much, Brighton, Brian, Norman, Karen, and Charlotte, for just sharpening our learning curve. And I'm captured by Brian, Mr. Mwao. Personally listening to you, I think your mind is not ordinary. And and it's not ordinary. And also, I deeply admire how you kept on saying Excans, your walk from Excans to where you have reached. And I looked at myself walking from Excans to where I am at. I deeply admire your walk with God. So my question is, I'm a little curious with, you see, you asked someone from church their level, why their life was like that. Then they answered that all I remember is we prayed and fasted. And then you went and prayed and fasted. And you were guided to Chris Kirubi. I'm a little curious with your first conversation with him, the kind of questions you asked and how you presented yourself to him. Yes.
Okay, so I think we can start with Norman on the question of our young friend here who is so overwhelmed. Then Brighton, and then Charlotte, maybe you can give us some insights on entrepreneurship. And then we can have Brian wrap up on the final question.
Sorry, remind me your name? Manasseh. Yes, Manasseh. So you have your whole life ahead of you. This is what I want to say to you. You said you're 19. You're 19. You have your whole life ahead of you, and the opportunities will come. What it tells me is that you're an exceptional young person, that's for sure. Don't be in a hurry, and I'm speaking from experience. Because there are things which I wish I had not rushed to do and gotten overwhelmed with. And those were some of the decisions that I made that then sort of collapsed me when I was speaking about some of my experiences. Because I also started doing something similar to you. I think I was about 19, 18-ish when I started getting into the workflow. By the time we were in Excans, I had a job, and so on and so forth. So my entire adult life I've spent working or doing something. And it's come at a price because that's what I knew, and that's what I always knew and what I always placed value on. But somebody told me the other day that there are like 4 stoves you always have to juggle. There's the stove of your life, your career or your work. There's the stove of your health. There's the stove of family, and there's the stove of, I think, friends. And it's impossible to keep all those hot plates hot. And the minute you focus on one, then something will start to drop. So I'll say at 19, the world is your oyster. Plan, get a guidance counselor, just speak to the specific opportunities that are then helping you then moderate and move forward in the direction that you need to go. But don't find yourself being the person who now is overwhelmed and having to make that decision at the age of 19 as to whether you should take a job with MIT or with Cornell or with wherever, or somebody's calling you. People will come and even offer you a job. Tell you, just forget about this school thing and come, because you're a child prodigy. We need you to do 1, 2, 3 things. I would say you need grounding, and you probably need a career or guidance counselor and someone that you can just walk that journey with you. And I think this is now where the whole mentorship question becomes very, very important. And at the stage that you are in, you probably do then therefore need that sort of a mentor. But just take a breath. Breathe in, breathe out. You're 19. The whole world is ahead of you. That's what I'll say.
Okay. And Brighton, you can tell us the third mentee.
There's actually somebody who's texted me apparently. Oh, I didn't know that it's being streamed. So somebody has texted me the actual name, so you can check it up. Or Gabriel, if you're still watching, you can let people know. But yes, it's the book of Acts. There's a whole story of Paul, Timothy, and Barnabas. And it's usually spoken a lot around mentorship across the different layers. You have a peer, you have a mentee, you have a mentor. So, but there it is. I also identify with this. Sorry to just add. It's not so much like me when I was in high school and campus. I was everywhere. In fact, everywhere. And now that I'm much older, not that I'm like 50 or 80, but so much of that has really been, it has come together. In our startup world, there's a YC Combinator. Okay, for those who may know, so it's something they talk about building things that don't scale, that help you learn. So when and we've done that a lot, and even in your case, you're young, you have energy, you get opportunity to do different things, just do. Of course, balance, school should be priority, obviously, but if you have energy to do things, just do things. While at it, as somebody was saying, you only connect the dots when you're looking backwards, and all those things converge at some point. Yes, prioritize school and your well-being. But, I mean, explore, have fun, enjoy curiosity. I did that. Of course, a bit overwhelmed here and there. But as you continue to do, one of the things that becomes very clear for me and what has worked is, now I don't do 1,000,001 things anymore. I've learned to do the 20 that gives me the 80. But now for me to actually know what is this 20 that will give me the 80, I ended up having to be on the run and all over the place, in the field. So that refinement comes with time. So yes, balance your well-being, your schooling and all that thing, but the opportunities to explore, please have fun. While at it, keep refining what's your 20 that will give you the 80 so that then you don't dispense all your energy everywhere. Sawa sawa. But for now, have fun, enjoy. I did that and it was fun. For her about...
as something that, either something you had to say no to in your career or a point in your career where you had a eureka moment. Maybe you had like a really low moment that,
Oh gosh, there be
changed your
many.
trajectory.
There be many. For those who like reading, you guys might know of McKinsey. It's one of the global consulting firms. There was a point where I was making so many mistakes in my career, and while at it, I bumped into a thing that McKinsey does. They call it the rookie moments. You know rookie, yeah? There's a fellow who says every master was once a rookie. Every guy there was always a beginner. And I've had many of those. I've spoken about them in some of the spaces, but there have been many. There have been instances where I have inconclusively gave feedback. Okay, this might be overexposure. But yes, I've had an instance where I was young in my career, so I looked at this data and I made a decision or a conclusion based on that data, but it was not the whole data, and some part of that data was not correct. And a major decision was made out of that data. And now, much later, it's when it came to the fore that actually that was the wrong decision because it was based on wrong data, and it came back to me. And then back then, now we started saying things like, But then sometimes it's never that serious. And I don't know whether Karen has found that, but back in our PwC days, used to say it's never that serious. Of course, in the essence of it meant that you'll find almost every great person has made blunders. And that's why McKinsey has that rookie moment, and the people share all the moments and experiences where they've made mistakes and big ones. Career-wise, I ever turned down a job that I thought that it was great, and then, but then now much later in life, I've also learned something that now we call it the burnt toast theory. Anyone who's ever heard of that? I thought it's famous, or at least it's someone, which basically means, it comes from an analogy. I'll be quick, 60 seconds, countdown. It basically means, it talks about a story of you are preparing for a meeting at 8 o'clock at work, and it's an important meeting. Maybe it's me, I'm going to present to this tier code, it's extremely important. But when I wake up, my alarm decides for whatever reason my phone goes off, so I'm not able to wake up at the time I need to wake up. And then I go to start preparing breakfast. Then when I'm just about it, the toast bread I'm doing, then it burns. Therefore, I have to do another one. And then, so I get late. And you can go check it out. So what it says is, so much of what happens could be that those 5 minutes I lost when I was remaking another toast because the other one burned was probably saving me from another thing that would have made things worse. So you hear people say that, and that's what I usually say. If this has happened, God is redirecting me to something else. And that's become my outlook on many mistakes I make, including last week. I mean, they are always there. But we can talk about that, and maybe I can share somewhere where I shared a lot about some of those things. But yes, there are so many rookie moments I've had in my career.
Thank you, Brayton. Then we can have Charlotte take us through the question on entrepreneurship.
Great, thank you for that question. The way I would answer it is by saying life is lived in seasons, right? And that means the underlying factor there is aligning your purpose to your calling, aligning your purpose actually to either it's your career or the business you want to be in. And are you in business right now, or you're considering getting into business? Sorry? You're considering getting into business. All right, so it means that right now you're pursuing a career, you're studying. I missed that part. Do you mind educating me? It's important for me so that I'm able to answer your question holistically.
So in between, I'm pursuing a career.
You are pursuing a career. All right, great. So I'd go back again and reiterate that yes, life indeed is lived in seasons, and there is the beauty of aligning your purpose to what you get to do on a daily, on a 9 to 5. And what I've seen from my personal experience, and also observing and watching people who have gone ahead of me, the beauty of living life through other people's shoes is having to start on before you can quit your 9 to 5. The beauty of running that on the parallel and building it slowly and not having to leave impromptu in a way. So it gives you the cushion also to know that in a few years, you already have this vision of this empire that you want to build. And most definitely, like one of the panelists here has said, it's important to have an alignment around who is this person who is doing already very well in this area of entrepreneurship that I would want to be in. If I could share maybe very briefly on how I've navigated that, one of the things I've had to do is to say, hey, how can I build a side hustle? I am having a side hustle. I have a coaching business that I have. And how do I create time to balance my work and the coaching business hustle that I do on the side over the weekends and maybe in the evening? So that creation of time allows you to divide your skills, your time very well, so that you are giving of yourself 100% in every place that you're called in. And what has also helped me is realizing that life is long. I know we do always say that life is short, But let me offer that life is very long. God giving us life, it is long. And even to you, my brother, at 19, you're very privileged having to do all that you're doing. And back to you, saying that life is long. So in drawing the map of where you'd want to be in every season, in these 10 years, I want to have developed this excellent skill that will help me in my entrepreneurship journey when I am at X and X. I will need person A, B, C, D to help me. Am I talking to them right now? And also, just an overarching statement to share with you again, that just give time. When time comes, you'll definitely be able to know when to make the leap, to cross over to that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. So we'll have Brian wind up in 60 seconds.
Yes.
Then Karen can give us the parting shot on
Yes.
something you'll want the participants to remember.
Brilliant. So I want the next 60 seconds to be very involving. So I would like everyone to stand up and then stretch a little bit. Then you can have a seat quickly. So 30 seconds, so they will forgive me. I've used my time to, but get into the question quickly. Of course, thank you very much, the two ladies who gave compliments. They are very much welcomed. Glory to God. About having an ordinary mind, it's true, I don't have an ordinary mind because I carry the mind of Christ. You know, there are some things you have to be ready about. And when you become more aware, versant about it, by then you will just really realize that is just the reality. It's a mere minimum reality. And it's how we are designed to be. We have to always be better than. You know, when Daniel and his friends were tried, Daniel and his friends, they became 10 times better. So if what I'm giving you is not 10 times better than what you can get anywhere, then it was not the best use of your time to be here listening to all of us, right? So coming to your question of how it came, what happened when I met Dr. CK. I kept the conversation very simple because at that time I was 21 years. There was nothing much I could be able to offer. At that time, he was ailing, so we had our conversation. I just told him, God loves you. And I was very authentic. I've been following truth speaking. I had been following his tweets. He was a motivational to me. So I spoke on a personal note. This is the impact your counsel and your tweet has had over my life. So at that point, I was not talking about numbers because he has better people around him who can talk about my numbers and better deals we've closed. At that time, Centam was still doing very great. So there are many people who can talk. And if it's politics, he has friends in the political space who can tell him better politics. You know, if it's football, he can fly and go and watch live. So for me, I became personal. And you'll notice, even when I'm speaking to you guys, I'm listening to the question, and I try to answer the question as it relates to me. I become personal. Because it's out of those personal moments that where you find untold stories. And that's why I told you, if you're looking to be great, it's not a hard thing. Just go and read the biographies of all the great people, at least 10 people who you know that are great. Read their biographies. Find what they did to become what they are. And in those small statements, you'll find the secrets and the shortcut to becoming great. So we had just a very lean conversation. When it became to the ask, on the first day I didn't ask for anything. He was actually very, very shocked. He told me, what can I do? I told him, no, I was just here to tell you what you do, the impact that your wisdom and tweets has been on my life. And thank you, and just pray that God, prolongs your life. And from that time, now we became friends. He could call me, I could call him once at least every week. And even after he passed on, now our current CEO, who was his greatest mentee, is now my personal mentor and friend, and we can have conversations. So, and if you're looking forward to become friends, it's not about, cars can be bought, right? People can relocate and go there, you can live in the US, can come back. But what personal attribute, if we have 5 minutes, what can I think of you that, you've impacted my life? Have you given me a compliment? Of course, I'll go home. I will remember she said I'm tall. It's at least, it's obvious, but it's a reminder. You see, it's out of those fine gestures, even at workplace. When you are with colleagues and someone comes in and they look, they have put in some effort. Even, just tell them, by the way, today you've put in some bit of effort. I admire your suit. I admire your choice of color. Just be very humanly, especially with those people you perceive as bosses. That can be a conversation starter and you see, the Bible says, what you don't honor cannot be passed over to you. So every access to every door starts with honor. Pale kwa gate, and excuse my ho, and I'm from Eastern, so mimi Mkamba. So honor, I'm talking about respect. Even a security guard, just honor them for the kind of person. Just find something positive about them. That's how even relationship and marriages thrive. Because at times, you come into a relationship, you always used to compliment each other, and then in that vicinity, you forget. Then there, the relationship. So always find something special to say about people, and you'll realize that, you'll continue scaling. And it was great speaking to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. So we'll have Karen.
Okay, thanks, Clem. And just to really appreciate everyone for taking your time on this precious Sunday afternoon to listen to us. As I was just sitting here, I'm just thinking how blessed we are to have such great minds and resources in God's kingdom. It's such an honor to be a panel amongst you guys. So thank you for your time. For me, as I reflect, there's one verse that guides me. As I mentioned, audit can get very hectic. There are times I vent so much beyond what I should do and with everything, but there's this one verse that usually anchors me in all that I do, and it says, it's Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ that you are serving. I think whichever way is the good days, the bad days, I always anchor myself in that verse, just to remind myself that it's Christ that I'm serving. And maybe to mention something that has been a highlight for me, especially this last 1 year, is just being teachable. By God's grace, much as I've handled so much where I work, I've had such an exceptional record in terms of my performance. And it got to a place where I was like, so what's new? What else can I do? And in that moment of asking God to help me to be teachable, He's exposed so much that I need to learn, that the last 8 years, every year has been so different. And even now, while it's been 8 years, I know, especially for the young people, the Gen Zs, you're like, 8 years in one place, how do you do that? But there have been very key moments where God has really shown up, and I can see and I can trace growth in my life, and for that I'm grateful. So what I'd encourage you is be curious, as Brighton said. Ask the Lord to show parts of you that need growth, and be teachable at that. Find resources around you. There are so many resources, like on YouTube. I don't know how many of you, if you're working, you're able to listen to some things, but that's one of the ways I really get myself to grow. Listen, there are so many nice podcasts. You have so many networks maybe at the place of work. Make use of such things and let them grow you, but always ensure that you're letting God take the lead. There are battles I've seen Him fight for me in my quiet nature. There are platforms He's given me. No matter how confident or maybe whatever personality I'd have, I don't think I'd have made that way for me. So I'm so grateful for how the Holy Spirit has journeyed with me. And I truly, truly wish you the very best in your careers. I hope these guys are accessible to everyone after this, because there are people I want to talk to as well and get some help in some of the areas. But just wish you all the best, and thank you so much for making time for this.
Thank you. 1 second.
Yeah, okay, in 30 seconds. I'll tell you a secret. In your journey of career, the only one point of leverage that you can use as an accountability or other measure of self in the kingdom of God and even to self is tithing. Tithing is the success. Any time you see someone in the kingdom of God who is successful, who is not sick, whose offsprings, watoto wao, they are keeping well, is one of the blessings that comes from just that bit of tithing. And one thing with tithing is, if you are not a tither at 10,000, you will never be a tither at 1 million. Praise God. So as you grow your career journey, this has always been my prayer point. At times, I don't pray for salary increase, but I pray to God that I'll be a better contributor to his kingdom, especially to the storehouse, through tithing. When I started tithing 2,500. So, but anytime I showed up with this tithe, I said, I'm very faithful in this amount that God you've blessed me, but I believe I can do better. Praise God. Over the years, that tithe has multiplied and multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. Praise God. So, one bit you can measure yourself is tithing. And if you're faithful in that one thing, this is a bit, for me, I discovered the secret very early. If you can tithe to God constantly, 10% of your salary goes to tithing, then your work, all the work that you do, can only be equated to 10%. Then the supernatural God steps into that work. He amplifies it 90 times better. You see the math? So people will be wondering, how comes you are performing too much, like you are 10 times better than every other person? Well, whereas the result that you're putting, to their eyes looks like 10%, but they still can't deny the results. It's all tied to tithing. But if you don't also tithe, the repercussions comes. That's when you try to push some, let me tell you, it's a spiritual reality. You push some deals, you push some results, you are always being graded below target or just somewhere hanging in between there. Try the bit of tithing. Because if you can tithe your income, you can also tithe your time. And you can create time in your busy 24 hours, at least 2 hours, for 2 hours, 40 minutes to be in the presence of God. And that can be while you are transitioning from work back home. You know, those is 2 hours. And maybe most of you here are privileged. You are driven home. You are using matatu. You are not driving yourself, right? So you can use the better that time that you have a driver that has been employed to take you home for free, and put some time to read a book, listen to a sermon, so that by the time God is blessing you and adding a responsibility where now you have to drive yourself home, you can also be able to put some more time to influence the people that you'll be carrying in your car to watch them grow. Praise God. Because life is always the same. Whoever is driving is praying to God to give him a driver so that he can go back to being a passenger. It's just the reality. And whoever is a passenger is trusting God to be a driver. So it's always that pattern. So once you realize that pattern, anytime you find a free time, give it back to God. And trust me, you'll see how quickly your career will scale.
Thank you. Thank you. So a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much for taking your time speaking to us. I know we've taken quite a long time, but it's good we covered quite a bit of the areas of concern. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you taking your time. So at this point, I'll invite Mark to give us the closing remarks as we appreciate our panelists.
Man, thank you. Please, would you help me appreciate our panelists as they take their seats? Thank you so much, Mr. Brighton, Mr. Brand, Mr. Bidan. Thank you so much, Karen Cole. Thank you so much, Charlotte Ocheng. God bless you. Have you had an amazing time? Have you had an amazing time? Should we have such topics again? I think this is quite a valuable time and season to be able to talk about things that actually affect our careers, even as young people, and how we can be of impact. Because the Bible tells us in Daniel chapter 11, verse 32, that those who know their God, they shall be strong and do great exploits. Amen. And so we are praying that in YP Sitem Valley Road, we shall have young people who are strong, but also are going to do great exploits. Amen. Look at your neighbor. Do they look like they're going to have great exploits? Excellent, excellent. Please help me appreciate also our moderator. Thank you so much, Clemens. God bless you. Yes, really, really appreciate you so much. So right about now, we're just closing our session. I want to just give a few announcements, even as we depart, to have our tea and just fellowship, continue networking as well. I'm sure people are going to be networking as they are going to be able to just go home, or people who want to go for coffee and continue the conversation or other conversations in Jesus' name. Amen. So, I didn't hear an amen. All right. I want to just invite one of our good friends from Social Action and Advocacy Ministry, and to just come and join me. What is happening is that as the young people as well in our generation, as you have seen in announcements in church, we have an opportunity next year to impact what is going to happen in this country. I don't think impacting is also just only us, having discussions amongst ourselves, but how can we participate in what's happening even in the country? And so we're going to have, and just talk about very briefly something we're working on together with Social Action and Advocacy, and then we shall be able to share a few announcements. Then our pastor will come and help us, just give us a benediction and close with a prayer. Karibu Ann.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon and praise the Lord. So Ann Wagaki is my name. On a normal day, I would speak better. I have some homa, but we thank God. So I'm from Social Action and Advocacy, as he mentioned. And one of our mandates there is what we call civic education. Now, do we have a responsibility as Christians to our country? Yes, we do, because Proverbs 29:2 says that if the righteous rule, what happens? If the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And if the wicked rule, the people groan. And so we have a responsibility as Christians, and of course as Kenyan citizens. And so for the last couple of weeks, we've been speaking to the IEBC team. And instead of us going to their stations for registration, we've requested them to come to Sitem Valley Road to register us from here. Simtupigie makofi kidogo. Yes. And so on the 5th and 12th of next month, this coming month, April, they will be here after the first and the second services. And so we're requesting as many as can be available, and those who've not yet registered, to please be there, register as a voter, check your registration status. If you also want to transfer your registration details to a different location, yes, you can do that. And so we've sent a certain link to Mark. He can share with each one of us, I think in our group, and we can confirm whether we are available on 5th or on 12th, just for our planning. I know as millennials over the years, we've had the myth that my one vote might not matter or might not make a huge difference. Can you tell your neighbor that's a lie from the devil? Your one vote matters. And so I need each one of us to be there, to be available, and to register as a voter. I've seen our younger people in the